Shabbat Shalom. So I am 5 hours off of a plane. And all of you who travel, know where you are in this realm of life with jet lag right now. So I'm here, but I'm not here, but I am here. So what I mean by that is my heart, Libi b'Mizrach. My heart is in the east. And it's still there, and it's going to take a long time to figure out where it sits right now in this moment. Because there's so much that was accomplished in 4 days, so much paying testimony and witness to what is an unbearable situation, and it is indeed a war. It is a war. We were blessed by being there during the 4 days of ceasefire that began when we got there and ended within 2 hours of us leaving. And I'm going to take you through a little bit of the journey, but there's so much that will come over time. And tonight is just about our witnessing and my story and sharing it with you. There's no right or wrong. This is not about what I'm sharing with you tonight. Tonight is just a story. Tonight is a narrative of a journey that went for 4 days, but in truth felt like 4 weeks in that amount of time. And I want to start by sharing this quote by Israeli peace activist Rabbi Nevarez, where he says the following. He says, "We have an enormous ally on our side, the power of pain. It is very much like nuclear energy. You can use this energy in order to be in darkness and destruction and pain, or you can use this energy to bring light and warmth and hope." This quote is something that I shared with you last year when I talked about woundedness as a superpower. But this quote means more to me now after paying testimony and witness and bearing witness to what I experienced and what 15 other beautiful, soulful individuals from our San Diego community experienced over these past few days. And I want to start out just by showing you this. And you may look at it, you're like, why did you take a picture of a truck? This is much more than a truck. This is a symbol of Israel. On every highway that goes to the north and to the south of Israel, you will see these trucks. These trucks are food trucks. These trucks are manned by volunteers, day and night. These trucks are for the soldiers that are leaving their homes, that are going to and from their bases. These trucks are there to show from the people of Israel, from the volunteers, from the chanechim, from those people to show that we are with you, that we're here, and that we stand with you. And these trucks symbolize something beautiful that we saw. We didn't just see destruction. We did see destruction. We saw a lot of pain, and that's not what I'm going to focus on tonight. I really want to share the power of community. And what I mean by community, a national community. And what I saw was awe-inspiring. But this truck symbolized for me so much. It symbolized that in the midst of pain and war, that there are people that are stopping, that are saying, we're here for you. And so the feelings of raw and intense and unimaginable all coalesce when I saw this truck. And to note that there was something beautiful and powerful in something so painful. And so where Rami Elchanan talks about you can use your energy in order to be in darkness and pain, or you can use it to bring light and warmth and hope, that truck is a symbol of light and warmth and hope. It is a symbol to say you're not alone. And that was really powerful. So there were several things that spoke to me. The emotion of the experience was raw. It was unimaginable. It was intense. All of the above. But it was threaded through some incredible spotlights. One was the people. On the left-hand side, this was a group of 16, led by Federation, our Heidi Gantwork, who's on her way back as we speak. And she and her team helped put together this incredible, powerful experience that we didn't know what it was going to look like. We had an idea a few days before, but really we didn't understand. And what are we wearing? We're wearing bulletproof vests because we visited Shar HaNegev. And it is required, no matter if there was a peacetime or a ceasefire or whether it's war, it's just required at the time. We were headed, that was in Kfar Aza. Kfar Aza is a beautiful community of 900 people that I visited several times before this. A pristine, idyllic, countryside kind of kibbutz that is about a mile from the Gaza border. And we were there because Kfar Aza was one of the several kibbutzim that was one of the epicenters of the massacre that occurred on October 7th. October 7th, in the Israeli mindset, to understand, is like our 9/11. Everything that was said in every interaction that we had was either called Black Sabbath or October 7th. So it is their 9/11. 10/7, October 7, Black Sabbath, those are the three words or three phrases that were consistently used at all times by anybody who we spoke to. So there we were paying testimony. We were about to pay testimony to what we were going to see. Next to it is a picture of myself with two incredible individuals. Vered Liebstein is in the middle, and her sister-in-law, Avery. Vered is the wife of Ofer Liebstein, who was the mayor who was one of the first that was killed in the massacre. Her sister-in-law is standing next to her. Between them, they lost a mother and a mother-in-law, a husband and two sons. And they're standing there, and they wanted to smile. They wanted to show their resolve. They wanted to stay, we're here, and we're living, and we live. And that was their attitude every time we saw them throughout the 4 days. Resilient, hurting, in pain, unbearable pain, but resilient as well. And they were one of the first that we encountered. The next was bearing witness. I'm not going to show you any more than this tonight in terms of the ugly, but these were just samplings of the many things we saw when we went to Kfar Aza. Kfar Aza, again, as I said, is a beautiful, idyllic neighborhood, and it is filled with so much peace and joy when you walk through it. And so when we got there on that very rainy day, it matched the moment that we were observing. This area that you're seeing is an area of student housing, meaning those who have already gone through Tzahal, have been officers, have been in the Tzahal, in the Israeli Defense Force, and they're small little bungalows, and they line the street because they're the closest to the borders. And individuals live there, sometimes two roommates. Most of the people in these were in their early to mid-20s. They were the first ones that were attacked. Many of them are still missing, and hostages, and a number of them passed, including Ofer's son, and including Vered's son. So these are the areas that we saw, and there's more to that. But this was incredibly hard to bear witness to these scenes. But they were scenes. They weren't the people. They were buildings. There were smells. There was disaster in the air. But there were not people. The kibbutzim have turned into army bases. Military people live in people's homes that are still intact because they're on the borders of Gaza, and so this is where they go. And they're here, not in these ones. Those are condemned. We happened to enter an hour after Elon Musk and Prime Minister Netanyahu was there. That's a whole other story. And then we were the first mission group allowed to enter into Kfar Aza because of our relationship with Shahar Negev. So we were the first group. After us, a few more groups came, but we were the first group that was allowed in to bear witness. And it was painful. It was hard. It was challenging. It was everything you could imagine. And still thinking about the images and what went on is going to take some time to really unfold. One of the things that made it very powerful is the way in which we flowed through these 4 days. We saw the physical destruction, but then we got to meet the people. Not in those places. They don't live there anymore. All of the kibbutzim have been relocated. Many go together, and they are living in different areas all over Israel together. So some are in the south, in Mitzpeh Ramon, in the desert. Some are in the north, and we were able to traverse the country in 4 days and visit 2 of the major communities. Some people have left and are with family abroad. Many of them stayed together. So communities travel together because they support each other, and others don't. And you'll hear about that in a moment. But some of these people are incredible individuals. And I want to share something that not one of them, but someone else said who is from Kibbutz Nahal Oz. This incredible woman, Naomi, who moved to the kibbutz 6 years ago. She's originally from the United States. She's actually from Canada. And she said, I remember it so clearly and vividly. She said, when you use words like catastrophe to describe a test or hell to describe a flight, you have no more words to describe what we went through. So think about that for a moment, right? When we use these descriptors in everyday life, and we use them as like they're real, like it was hell, it was so bad. Oh, my flight was a disaster, it was a catastrophe. How do you put descriptors on these experiences that you see or you experience? And so these individuals that you see up here, Yachel and his daughter, are holding cards, dozens of cards that our religious school students wrote and sent, beautiful cards of love, of messages of hope. And they take them and they gave them out to their kibbutz Erez. And it was incredible, just incredible. And they're staying in Mitzpeh Ramon, which is in the desert, which is near the crater, in the middle of the Negev. And they're there, and they're in housing in 2 different areas, and they're trying to live life. But imagine, your whole life has been upended, and then you have to leave your physical space that you know and love and cherish and enter into one room with 4 or 5 people in a room now. They don't know how long they're going to be there. They could be there another few months. They could be there another 6 months. Some of them want to go back. Others don't. They're in kind of a purgatory or a limbo, trying to figure out how life is going to unfold. And they're trying to think about it. And they're trying to understand. The 2 individuals to the right on the screen are from Kibbutz Nahal Oz. That kibbutz was the one that I just showed you in the pictures. I'm not going to go into any descriptions of what they experienced. They and their families survived. If you remember Adi, who spoke here, the Cherry family, one of them lived next to Adi and experienced something profound and painful, and everything that Adi said just gave us another perspective on it. One of the things that I will say is that things that we don't always think about, we asked about animals. We said, so what was going on with all the dogs that are going on in the kibbutz? What was happening? What was there barking? What was happening at the time? And one of them said, well, many of the animals, if they were pets, came into the safe houses with those people, with their families. And they had to be silent because they were trying to remain silent so they wouldn't be heard. And all of the people that we spoke to said miraculously, the dogs had a sixth sense about what was going on, and there was no barking. Dogs that were known to bark day and night, and you think of your dogs at home, and I think of my dog, and the doorbell rings, and she goes nuts. Silence. They went to sleep. They shut down. They knew something was going on. The same for many of the children. Some of these families were in their safe rooms for 30 hours. They had to go to the bathroom in the safe rooms. They had to navigate and live in the safe rooms quietly, silently, many of them in darkness because the power was on and off. And yet they did it with their animals, with their children, in silence. And the stories were similar whenever we met individuals, and we met many. Throughout, we heard their stories time and again. Miraculous. Last person we met was this person as we were leaving Lachalos. Her daughter is still a hostage. She has not yet been released. And she asked us
they are
this.
Not little kids, they are son and
She
daughter
asked
of
us
someone who want them back to come back. So because that we need that all of them came back home. My daughter and all of them who are there. Please.
You couldn't really hear her, but what she was saying was it's important that the world knows what they've been through, what tragedy they've been through, and how we need to spread the word to help get them home. And she was asking us this. She happened to be there because it was a ceasefire, and some of the individuals were allowed to pick up clothing or other things. She came back not to pick up clothing, to go through the rubble of her home that was destroyed, to pick something up of her daughter's, a piece, an item that she wanted her daughter to have, so when she came back from being captured, that she could hand it to her and that she could hold it. That's why she was there. That was the only reason she was in Nachalos. So imagine, she came all the way back to look at her homes. Many of them had not seen their homes since they left on October 8th, October 7th. And then she came back to get something for her. It was incredible and painful at the same time. But then you saw something else. You saw resilience. So we saw pain, and there was a lot of pain, and there was a lot more than what I'm just showing you in these few minutes. But what we saw and what we witnessed in Israel is something that I've never seen here in the United States ever, even after 9/11. Something transformed the country. This country that was bitterly divided. If you remember on Rosh Hashanah, I was talking to you about our challenges with the Israeli government and democracy. And overnight, the country has unified. And I just want to share with you a few ways. The government has basically been non-existent. That has been said and shouted from every corner of Israel over the past 4 days since we've been there. The government is doing the war. That's what they're doing. They're not taking care of the people. That is very clear, coming from all political strands and spectrums. So, the people came together. One of the incredible organizations is called Achim Laneshek, which is Brothers and Sisters for Israel. That's their anglicized name that they're using for it. And what is it? It's a grassroots movement that has been spearheading the weekly protests in Israel since the disastrous coalition that came into power in Israel. The man you see on the left-hand side is one of the founders. And he said, for 11 months, I've been doing nothing but this work. The work has been saving the soul of the country in partnership with hundreds of thousands of others. And since October 7th, they transitioned their massive organization into what is now called a Hamal. A Hamal is a resource and volunteer coordination operation. They've done everything from providing millions of meals to displaced families to supporting families who have to evacuate because they weren't technically included in the evacuation orders. Because the evacuation orders are for 4 kilometers around the Gaza envelope. If you live 4.2 kilometers outside the Gaza envelope, you receive nothing from the government. No movement, no money for temporary housing, no money for meals, nothing. And so this organization, this Hamal, in Tel Aviv, and there's one in Jerusalem, they helped bring and support families to give them housing, to give them shelter. Imagine in these homes, you have 85, 90-year-old disabled individuals. You have young families, new immigrants to the country, many of them from Ukraine, who've already lived through one war, and now they're living through a second war, and now they have to move again. And so the Hamal comes into being. This gentleman right here, he's a venture capitalist. He has spent his many years building companies. He is one of the individuals who gives the most venture capitalist funding to the most Israeli startups ever. And he is now running this Hamal with many other gifted individuals. They have put aside their jobs, and they are now committed to providing for Israeli society. And they receive no support from the government, but the government sees how much they're doing, and now they're in relationship with them. From driving soldiers to their bases to making sure displaced families have what they need for support and visitors, Achim L'Neshek has been leaning into and restoring wholeness and hope and vision at the highest level in Israel after the country has experienced and survived the worst of evil and humanity. It was incredible to see. To the right, you'll see one of the warehouses. It was a theater space that was turned into a storage facility where they received not only donations, but now they receive a lot of funding to buy materials for everybody that needs. And so these communities are getting all sorts of incredible needs and necessities for the communities. Thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers volunteer each and every day. When we were in the Hamal, we saw people in their 18, 19 years old, and we saw 85-year-olds that were volunteering, and everyone in between. There was no age limit. It was society coming together. We saw Dati, we saw Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, we saw secular. Everybody was coming together to work. Every person. We also got to have a visit with the President of Israel, Bougie, and we had an opportunity to meet with him and hear what they are trying to do diplomatic-wise and what they're trying to do for hostages. And it was an inspiring conversation. But we know that he doesn't run the government. He is a diplomat who speaks on behalf of the government. But he speaks with soulfulness, and he speaks with knowing how much the diaspora community is doing for Israel, which every single person when we were there has had gratitude for San Diego, for all of you, and for our community and what we're doing in there. As I said, we ebbed and flowed through our journey, seeing the beauty and seeing the pain. And then on our final day, we were in Tel Aviv. And in Tel Aviv, we were able to see and meet with families of hostage, people who are in hostage right now in Gaza. These two individuals have grandparents and nephews in Gaza right now. One of each has already been released, and the others are still there. So they have spoken on some of the atrocities that have come from this time and what they've come to learn. And you're reading right now in the papers, you're starting to read about some of the pain that that has come out of what we're learning about the hostages and the conditions that they were kept in. And then there are others who've made it out and are now reuniting with their families and trying to rebuild their lives. But they have a center, and it's civilian run. The government has nothing to do with it again. It is civilian run, and these individuals come and they meet with groups from around the world. They meet with newspapers, they meet with media, they meet with politicians and elected officials from all across the world to share their stories, to try to drive advocacy and try to get elected officials to really push Hamas to move on releasing the hostages. And they do incredible work. The one other thing I want to show you, I told you about the Hamal in these displaced communities. For example, where Kfar Aza is right now in a kibbutz, they have these incredible stores that they put together. These stores are run by the volunteers in the kibbutz. If you go into them, you would be amazed. They have everything you could ever want, and everything there is free. It is for every member of the community, whatever they need, from diapers to designer shoes, to designer handbags, to toothpaste and essentials and backpacks and school supplies. They have everything. Last thing I want to show you here is a tattoo. I notice many in Israel have tattoos if they're Chiloni, if they're secular, but most people that sit in kind of the middle don't really yearn for tattoos. That's been my experience over the years. But many on the kibbutzim, receive tattoos after 10/7. Look at the tattoo, if you can look at it closely. This is the tattoo that was on one of the women that you saw up there. It's a cape, a superwoman, wrapped around her children, because she held her children and was able to actually confront the terrorists and actually save her children. Miraculous. And there are many others who have tattoos on them now to symbolize something about their kibbutz family, about their own families, to bring some sense of unification to their experience. And that was incredibly powerful to see. So what is next with all of this? Well, one of the amazing things that we were able to do on the last day also is to meet with a beloved professor of mine, Rabbi Daniel Hartman from the Hartman Institute. And he speaks very lovely and candidly. He's a centrist, a left of center individual, ideologically, politically. And he had some incredible things and incredible takeaways for us to hear. And what he said was, there are really no answers, and he worries about tomorrow. And I wrote about this in the blogs that you'll see that you received today in the links from the Clergy Corner. But he puts out some questions. And he said that there's a wrestling with apathy, that we're concerned about what happens when Israel has to continue to defend itself, to rid itself of Hamas, and the world says enough is enough, and we can't stand any more bloodshed. And this is a real issue, even in the Jewish community, how we navigate this. And I stand before you today without an answer in this moment. I don't have an answer. None of us do. We didn't walk away with an answer. We walked away with a lot of questions. And we walked away knowing that everybody has a story. And the stories are what hold us and compel us. There is nothing that, if you hear a story, many of us get drawn into a story. We can fight on social media, we can try to push our point, but that isn't going to affect change. Stories and narratives affect change. The stories I heard in the past 4 days have transformed my own understanding of what I thought I knew. And now I'm all the richer and more blessed and humbled because of the stories that people shared with me that I get to pass on to you and countless others. And we get to do that because everybody has to pay testimony and witness. That's why Steven Spielberg created the Shoah Foundation. It helped to direct the testimonials for the Shoah Foundation. That is why we hold these stories, because we're actually living through a piece of history right now, and we don't even realize it. We're living through a monumental time that is already starting to transform how we operate in the world. And we have to think about how we navigate through it. And so when I ask the question, what's next? I don't know, but I know the task is actually enormous. It is not something we can even wrap our heads around right now. There's rebuilding that's going to have to go on. The idea of the Shah HaNegev community, and many of them want to rebuild. It may not look exactly like it looks today, but our San Diego community is going to have to help do our part to work with other partners to rebuild their community. And that's going to take strength, it's going to take time, it's going to take treasure, it's going to take our presence, it's going to take a lot from us. But I want to say what I do know is that the lieutenant colonel that we met with in the IDF, and we met with the reserve, we had lunch with several hundred soldiers. We also went on to an air base and fed an entire squadron, which was fantastic and amazing. But when we met with this group of reservists, many of them were reservists, so they were 20s, 30s, early 40s, somewhere in their 50s. They are going in, their logistics and medics going in and out of Gaza each and every day. And they were taking a respite because they were in ceasefire. And the lieutenant colonel, the head of the entire command, said, I want you to pass this on to your people. And he said the following. He said, don't worry, Israel isn't going anywhere. He was very clear, and he said, bring that back to your communities. And he meant it, because they are resolute in their defense of their homeland, because they know it and we know it. They have no other place to go. And so for them, this is about survival. And there isn't a cockiness, there isn't an arrogance. There is partnership, there is beauty and wonder. There is pain for the Gazan civilians who are suffering through this tragedy. We speak about it all the time there. But there's also anger. There's anger for innocent people gathering in the streets and cheering on when bloody bodies are being paraded through the streets of Gaza. That is not something that is celebrated by us in any community. But that is something that is very painful for especially those who are living on the Gaza border, who each and every day, many of them fight for peace and have been fighting for decades. To our peaceniks, they have wanted this. They have tried to make this country workable and a neighbor with their Palestinian neighbors. And for them, this is beyond tragic, because they were not the naysayers. They were the ones who said peace is possible. And so we're looking at a different language and understanding of how we now enter into relationship with Israel. And so I don't have answers for you tonight. I have a story that I just shared, and a little bit. And I have so much more that we will share, and 5 other individuals from our congregation who have their own stories to share, and so many other opportunities that we'll get to come together and do things that I hope will speak to each of you, that you find your passions, you find your way, your advocacy, and your support to bring it home and to do your part in bringing kindness. And I just close with this by my wonderful professor, Rabbi Daniel Hartman, who said the following when we met with him yesterday morning. He said the following: I always worry about the quality of survival. As people who care, I want to draft you into the thought fabric of tomorrow. So he's talking about us as American Jews. He's saying that he wants to draft us into the thought fabric of tomorrow, because he's not worried about survival. He has no concern that Israel is going to be here tomorrow. But he's concerned about the quality of survival. And that's going to, and he said it very clearly, this will impact the diaspora in profound ways. And so we have to really be part of the conversation and not let it be handled by others. We have to hold the conversation in our hearts, and in our minds, and in our hands, in any way that we can. So we'll continue to do the work together, and I hope that you'll join me and us in that sacred task. So we say, Amen.